This week on Motorcycle Experience, our ultimate ride rolls onto Manitoulin Island as we celebrate Canada's 150th anniversary of Confederation. Then, during this week's Red Adventure, Toni Sharpless is saving some gear for a rainy day, while our staff riding instructor Jenn Martin is going the distance to best avoid rider fatigue. While over in the garage at Origin8or Custom Cycles, Rob Chappell is pulling our project bike into the home stretch. All this and more on Motorcycle Experience. Hello and welcome to Motorcycle Experience, the voice of motorcyclists everywhere. I'm Dave Hatch, and this week we've got a great jam-packed show for you. We've got the ultimate ride, the Red Adventure, shifting gears. But before we get to all that, let's check out this week's road test of BMW's all-new sport touring machine, the R1200 RS. You know, 15 years ago, sport touring was extremely popular. Big bore sport bikes modified with bigger fairings, more upright ergonomics, and hard-sided saddlebags were known back in the day as a gentleman's express. But then Ewing McGregor and Charlie Borman came the long way round, and suddenly adventure touring was all the rage. And sport touring was kinda kicked to the weeds. Well, fast forward a decade or so, and thankfully BMW has decided to bring back their popular sport touring weapon, the R1200 RS. This time building it around their newest generation liquid-cooled R1200 GS Boxer engine. Under the 3/4 fairing up front, you'll find a nice beefy inverted fork and a pair of Brembo radial-mounted calipers, while out back, BMW's classic pair lever, single-sided swing arm, and shaft final drive hold court. In the electronics department, there's plenty of bells and whistles this time around, as ABS, 2-engine management ride modes, and automatic stability control are standard. So how does this newest generation sport touring machine work out on the open road? Well, here now is Triumph Bonneville polisher and BMW RT owner, Kemp Stewart. So Kemp, what was your first impression when you threw a leg over this morning?
The first impression was actually that it was a well-balanced bike, and typical BMW seemed a little heavier than most bikes of its size, but boy, when I first started driving it, it didn't feel like a heavy bike at all. In fact, it just weighs over 500 pounds.
Mm-hmm. So let's talk about that engine. It's the classic horizontally opposed, in this case, the modern version, the water air-cooled Boxster engine. What did you think of the motor?
Oh, loved it. It's very responsive. 1200, it's technically 1170 cc's, 125 horsepower. You can cruise all day and keep up with the traffic, certainly in North America.
Yeah. The
thing that really impressed me, though, was the transmission system has changed significantly from even the RT that I rode last year. Mm-hmm. That it doesn't have that heavy clunk when shifting. This is really smooth with the Pro shifter on it. It's super.
Brakes, you've got the dual brakes, Brembo's up front, ABS. Did you find there was enough stopping
Very
power?
responsive, no question. Could stop on a dime, and in fact actually threw me a little forward a couple of times. It was behaving so well.
What I liked about it for me was the riding position.
Yep.
It's still a lot of leg room, even though you're in a sport bike configuration to a degree. A lot of leg room, great saddle, and then just enough sort of lean forward. Not a lot, but just a little lean forward. And I just found that it was super comfortable.
Over a couple of days, I think there would be a tendency to cramp up and that sort of thing. But for a day or two, especially for younger folks, I think you're not feeling stretched. It's feeling really good.
Cool. How did you like the instrument pod on this?
Loved the instrument pod.
Yeah.
Now I'm at the stage in life where even my sunglasses have bifocals in them, and I didn't even need that. I could see clearly the speeds. The whole display is right there without having to look for it. Certainly the tack is very easy to read.
Yeah. A lot of information there too, like a lot of information.
Yeah.
Fit finish.
This being more of a sports bike, it's only got a half a fairing. But I found that you get lots of protection, and it goes back to the touring aspect that unless you got into a torrential downpour, which is never fun to drive on a motorcycle, I think there's more than adequate protection.
Yeah.
The only weakness that I found, and maybe it's a personal bugbear, is that this windscreen is very, very much a sports windscreen, but it's really quite low. So that's the extent of it. Now I do like the wind in my face, but again, if you're doing some touring, you're going to be chewing some bugs.
Right. Can you just describe the overall riding experience? What were you hearing? Was the motor pleasant to hear? Could you hear it? What kind of riding position were you in? What was the experience like today?
It was really, really comfortable. The motor is strong. It just sounded so great. Love the Boxster sound. Love the transmission and how smooth we were able to shift through the gears.
Yeah.
The ride was comfortable. Everything was intuitively where it should be, and I think that's a really important. You don't have to look around finding things; they're where they should be.
Yeah.
Overall, I could not recommend this highly enough. It's and as I say, I really think for somebody in their late 20s, early 30s, that have maybe had a couple of motorcycles, this would be a great step up for them, and boy, they won't be disappointed. Being a road bike or a city bike, a touring bike, or it's got that sports characteristics and all the power that you would need.
Wonderful. Well, thanks for coming out today and
David, my pleasure.
it.
Thanks very much.
Great job.
Hang in there, we've got plenty more experience still ahead. Next, Toni Sharpless says, when it rains, it pours, and you better be prepared. While Norm Wells and I continue our fall ride on the largest freshwater lake island in the world. Portions of this broadcast are brought to you in part by Honda Canada, Suzuki Canada, and BMW Motorrad.
Welcome back to Motorcycle Experience. I'm Dave Hatch, and it's time now to catch up with this week's ultimate ride. Today, Norm Wells and I are finally reaching our ultimate destination as we continue to celebrate Canada's 150th anniversary of Confederation. Today, we're on Manitoulin Island.
Okay, so Norm Wells of BMW Motorrad and myself pack up our motorcycles each fall and set off to explore a new destination somewhere here in Canada. This year, we embarked on a Canada 150 inspired trip as we headed northeast from BMW Motorrad's headquarters in Richmond Hill, Ontario, with the intention of taking a long way round type route to Manitoulin Island, located on Lake Huron. Along the way, we sampled some great twisty roads before calling it a day in Pembroke on the south shore of the Ottawa River. On day 2, we headed west along the Trans-Canada Highway, imagining the water route one Samuel de Champlain may have explored back in 1604 as we tracked the Big Ottawa River. We made several stops that day before stopping for the night in Sudbury. Now, on day 3, we're back in the saddle and we're finally arriving at our ultimate destination, a big freshwater lake island on Lake Huron with a rich First Nations history.
So Norm, here we are standing next to a very windy big lake on Manitoulin Island, halfway through day 3 of our ultimate ride, our 17th ultimate ride. And we left Espanola early this morning, and I have to say, as we headed south on Highway 6, that was just a phenomenal ride.
Oh, it's beautiful. I mean, it's mountainous and big sweeping curves and fresh pavement. There's like just 50 kilometers of bliss.
Yeah, it was gorgeous. And then we crossed the bridge at Little Current and officially entered the island, the largest freshwater island in the world. And I had forgotten how beautiful and serene and non-commercialized it is here.
Yeah, it's very quiet, and there's no big hotel chains, there's no big food chains or anything like that. I mean, primarily all you're going to get on the island is bed and breakfast and cottages other than South Baymouth, but yeah, it's just beautiful here.
Yeah, so definitely plan on spending a day here. There's all kinds of little roads and offshoots, and no matter where you wind up, you're going to get either a view of a little lake like this or Georgian Bay, Lake Huron. The scenery is gorgeous. You definitely want to bring a camera.
Yeah, and then you know what, there's no destination here on the island.
Right.
You're just riding around and enjoying it, and it's so peaceful, and you just get into a whole different zone over here.
Yeah, so last night I was doing a little research. This is a sacred island to the First Nations people, and there's like three tribes that call the island home, but you were saying the history of that goes way back.
Yeah, the first inhabitants of Manitoulin were post-Ice Age, about 9,500 years ago. The Paleo Indians were the first ones here, and they were here for about 7,000 years. So
yeah.
That's 9,500 years is a serious time.
Yeah, so great history, great things to explore, virtually untouched. I guess from here we're going to continue to head south on 542. South Baymouth is the destination.
Yeah, we'll have a little late lunch there, and maybe take in a little bit of the arts and crafts that I'm sure are going to be there as well.
Get some souvenirs.
Yes, of course, we need to have those.
And then on to the Chi-Chi-Man, and it's all about the ferry.
Hopefully it won't be this windy on that side.
Yeah, I wonder what that crossing is going to be like. That'll be interesting.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's head for South Baymouth. It's been an ultimate ride.
Absolutely.
Next week, be sure to tune in as Norm and I board the Chi-Chi-Man and settle in for the cruise south to Tobermory. For now, let's pull over for a few minutes with Toni Sharpless and her riding pals to take a closer look at the latest in wet weather riding gear.
So Toni, here we are. We're out just for a typical fall day, a beautiful blast. Mike and Michelle are along with us for the ride, and I can't even imagine that it's going to rain today. And yet you have a rain suit with you.
Well, it's supposed to rain tomorrow, and we had a bit of rain yesterday, so, you know, I never know if the weatherman's going to be right.
Right. So let's talk about rain suits. I know you brought along this is your fall riding jacket, and we've talked about this before. This jacket, I know, has a liner inside that you can pull out and put on the outside as a shell, and it's totally rain-proof, and it's sort of your go-to. But today in your backpack, you brought a full-on rain suit.
Yeah, I wasn't sure what the weather was going to be like, and we're going to be riding all day, almost sun up, sun down kind of scenario.
Yeah.
So I use these materials for windproof as well, so if it's cold out, I'll put my rain jacket on. And like you said, this one comes with this jacket, and it zips into the inside.
Yeah.
Or I can just put it on the outside, however I want to run it. But having an extra one, I just find that for the really cold weather, I just have it rolled up in my backpack for today, and then late tonight when we're going home, I can put it on, and I'm going to be riding in the dark. I'll be seen, and I'll be dry if it's raining, and I'll be warm if it's just cold and windy.
Yeah. Now that's a great piece of advice. Yeah. This, for nighttime riding, this is great. Mine is yellow, same suit, but I've got the yellow one. But that's wonderful. Yeah. So now you've got some conspicuity, whether it's raining or not.
Yeah, it's a smart idea.
Now, what happens if you mess up? I didn't bring a rain suit today because I looked at the weather and it's going to be perfect today. What happens if you mess up and you don't have a rain suit and it starts to rain and you've still got another 600 kilometers ahead of you?
Yeah, I've done this before. I pull into a gas station and ask them if I can buy a green garbage bag.
Right.
Cut a hole in the top, 2 holes for your arms, and put it on over top. It's a really noisy option.
Yes.
It's very noisy, but it's not as comfortable as this, but it will keep your core warmth in.
Yeah.
And you can clock those kilometers that you need to do. So it'll get you further down the road for sure.
I can also go one better with that one. I had some boots leaking on me once. I went to the grocery store, got some plastic bags, pulled them over my socks, then put my boots back on, and that kept my feet dry.
Yeah, and
so there are ways around this if you are stuck.
Yeah, totally. That's a great idea.
All right, well, some great advice there. Look, see, the sun came out. We don't need rain suits, but always be prepared.
That's right.
Excellent. Good stuff.
Thanks, Dave.
Up next, covering long distances on a motorcycle takes preparation, planning, and knowing when to pull over. Plus, we'll look in on the progress of this season's Yamaha FZ7 project bike.
Welcome back to Motorcycle Experience. I'm Dave Hatch, and it's time now to look in on the progress of our Yamaha FZ7 project bike. This week, custom bike builder Rob Chappell says it's time to head off to the paint shop.
All this season, Rob Chappell over at Origin8or Custom Cycles has been working on our FZ7 project bike. Yep, in just a month and a half, he's taken a brand new FZ7, stripped it of his angular bodywork, rear tailpiece, and saddle. He's also tossed the fork, the headlight module, the stock pipe, and the lighting system. And more recently, he's remolded the 5-piece gas tank and painted the frame. It's pretty amazing what he's done in just a very short period of time. And now we're in the home stretch as the motorcycle has to be ready for the consumer show circuit in just 2 weeks. Let's look in on him now.
Well, Rob, we're down to the last 2 weeks in this FZ07 project, and the tank is back. It's white and it's ugly. The tank itself looks great, but I didn't expect to see it in white.
No, this is just this is our fiberglass part. So my good friend Steve Strutt, he makes all of my molds. So you saw last time when I was holding up the part.
Right.
I gave him that. We made a plug out of it. This is an actual fiberglass piece out of that mold.
Right.
As you can see, the shape's quite different from stock. Mm-hmm. So very like round, kind of flowing lines, a nice little flat top, and great knee indents is going to allow you to tuck into the bike, right?
Right.
So that integrated with the seat and tail rack is going to make the package what I envisioned it to be. White's a little stark, you know, we're going for a darker kind of somber theme.
Yeah.
Not so loud, but anyway, it'll be painted. Actually going to paint tomorrow. So. Okay. Yeah.
So yeah, we've got 2 weeks to go. We're in the final stages. This, I remember this now. This was you had to build like a mold for this,
yeah,
right?
That's right, yeah. So I started with the stock tank as a base just to kind of have my reference points, and then started shaping it. It was a lot of work to get it to where it was. But now that we've got a finished part, I can continue to make these pieces on an ongoing basis.
You've done a rad cover as well,
yeah,
and you've got your logo in there, but that's great. Tell me about this.
So what would happen, you know, going off road and that sort of thing, what would invariably happen is you'll get stones kicked up off the front wheel, even with the fender. So because we're envisioning this bike going at least 40% off road,
right?
I wanted to make something that would protect the rad as well. So that's a full stainless steel piece. So I designed it all in cardboard first, was able to bring that into a CAD program, design it all, send it out to my stainless cutters. That's all laser cut. And then I bent it here and made sure everything fit well, and away you go. So the front's got a really nice set of grooves in it, which keep the rocks out of the front of that rad, which is, you know, as you know, is quite delicate.
It looks great, and I can see it's all coming together. Any word yet from your brother on that saddle out in California?
He actually just received the pan yesterday. So I sent him in some renderings and said this is what I want in terms of upholstery and the stitching that I wanted to see on the tail.
Yeah.
So the seat will kind of flow in between. And then matching that stainless front rad guard, I've got a stainless back rack that I built for the bike, so it's going to kind of integrate quite nicely. So.
Okay, so paint job tomorrow, saddle coming back from California, back rack, we're almost done. What will happen next when we come back to see you again?
So ultimately, what I want to see happen is we want to get this bike out to Hindle for a final dyno run.
Right.
I've got a dyno jet kit that I've ordered for the bike, so we're going to get that put on, get the bike fully tuned, and make sure it goes as good as it looks.
Well, I'm very excited. Maybe what we should do is meet you up at Hindle.
Yeah.
We'll do the reveal
awesome.
there. We'll dyno it, and we'll have a final look there.
Yeah, for sure. Cool.
Okay, man, this is looking so good. I can't. 2 more weeks. I can't wait.
Cool.
Great job.
All right.
All right, I hope you've been getting your beauty rest, because next, Shifting Gears segment editor Jenn Martin wants to discuss rider fatigue. Stay with us. Portions of this broadcast are brought to you in part by Honda Canada, Suzuki Canada, and BMW Motorrad. Welcome back to Motorcycle Experience. I'm Dave Hatch, and we'll wrap up our show now with Shifting Gears. And Now that the summer has finally arrived full bore, some of you are gearing up for a long-distance tour. And Jenn Martin wants to make sure you're ready for the long haul.
So Jenn, I know every year you do an annual ride with your girlfriends and you generally put in a lot of miles. Do you guys ever come across rider fatigue, and how do you guys know when to call it a day?
Yeah, I mean, that's a big thing when you're going on long distance riding, knowing when to stop. So for us, I mean, certainly we gas up every couple of 100 kilometers or so, but when you have those stop opportunities, you know, get some fluids in. You want to keep hydrated. That's a big thing in combating fatigue.
Right. Well, it's been a super hot summer this year, and I guess when you're riding and you're wearing a jacket like an airflow jacket like this, I don't think we realize the wind is blowing through our bodies. It's actually wicking away moisture a lot faster than if we were just standing still.
For sure, and so you do need to hydrate, but as well, you know, speaking of your jackets, we talk about the fit. So you want to make sure that the jacket fits you properly so it is not causing problems for you, because if you're uncomfortable when you ride as well, that is going to shorten your amount of time you can ride.
Yeah, well, the new jackets these days, they come with like these sort of cinching straps, if you will, because if this is flapping, if your sleeves are flapping or your shoulder is flapping, it'll actually tire you out, right?
For sure, and the collars and things like that don't button down, I mean, if they start flapping, that's going to create just a whole lot of issues there.
Right, and all of this is really about brain processing noises. So I found earplugs. Do you wear earplugs when you're riding?
Yes, I do.
No matter how quiet your helmet, earplugs are great for combating fatigue.
For sure, yeah. It doesn't matter the style, as you said, the style of helmet you're wearing. Invest in earplugs if you're doing a lot of long distance riding, because I mean, you'll still be able to hear sirens and horns and things like that, but it cuts down that white noise that, you know, we pay big bucks for a CD to put ourselves to sleep listening to.
Right. And then how do you know that it's time to pull over?
Yeah, when you start yawning in your helmet, you know, over and over again, or, you know, you can't remember the last couple of kilometers or so that you've been riding, I think those are definite key indicators you should be paying attention. Pull over to the side of the road, maybe do a couple straches.
Right.
Again, get some more water in, some granola.
Right. Sorry, what were we talking about? Oh, fatigue.
Fatigue!
Great advice. Let's take a break.
Yes.
Thanks. Well, that's it for this week's program, folks. We're all out of time, but before we go, I just want to remind you to go to our website, motorcycleexperience.ca, and join our Riders Club. You'll get information about all of our live events, including our upcoming film festival and our Wings Over the County event in September. Anyway, till next week, keep your feet on the pegs and your right hand cranked. Bye for now.